Hello, and thanks for joining us today. I hope you're enjoying the UC Summit so far. I'm Claire Dutton, and I head up corporate sales for the UK at Poly. And joining me today is Jen Adams, Poly's Global Senior Director of Sales Experience and Enablement. Over the last few years at Poly, we've invested in research based around places of work evolving, and there has been an increase in remote work and co-working spaces. But the global pandemic has really sped up the transition of the remote workforce, and work is no longer a place. Pre-COVID, 3.6% of the total employee workforce worked from home more than 50% of the time. And the Global Workplace Analytics estimates that 25 to 30% of the total workforce will be working from home multiple days a week by the end of this year. Employees need to be productive at home and in the office and everywhere in between. So you need to consider the investments you make in these areas to ensure you maximize the experience for employees while minimizing risk. Identifying personas within your business is really critical to ensure everyone has the correct tools to maximize efficiency without compromise, which really leads us into our discussion today. So, Jem, you've been heavily involved and invested a large amount of time researching the work style and behaviours found in the majority of enterprise customers. Can you share with us the research you've done and what the main findings were?
So Poly has been doing research around user work styles for a number of years. In fact, we did it for the first time in 2013. And the reason why we did that is really to have a better understanding of how people work, where they work, and how they communicate. And then we use this information to advise our customers on how they can provide the best experiences for their employees, but also for us to make sure that we're designing the products and solutions that will be most beneficial to the work styles that are most prevalent in the enterprise. So the outcome of this research is always very exciting for us. And this research is very new, and there were many things that were happening in the past year that really changed things for the way that people work. And that was not that surprising to see, but I think the impact of that is going to be very lasting. So we see over the years a lot of shifts in user behavior, especially around where they work, how they work, the devices that they use. And a lot of these changes were happening even before the pandemic. So we started to see a lot of these shifts, and then the pandemic really accelerated some of those things. And so I think that there's going to be some lasting impact on how people work in the future. And I think there's an opportunity for Poly to help our customers navigate that by understanding in a quantitative way how these shifts are happening in their own environments that they may not even be aware of.
Mm-hmm. So how do customers know what personas are in their organization?
So the way that we figure it out in the research that we have done is we actually do a survey. And the survey that we do is probably much more in depth than a customer would be able to do with their employees. But we surveyed nearly 5,000 respondents across 8 different countries. And we did a 50-question survey that took about 25 minutes to complete. And out of that, we were able to look at a segmentation, which is it's an archetype. It is what are some of the common behaviors of different work styles. And we were able to identify work styles across 9 different dimensions. So we asked them work location, communication intensity, tech savviness, career focus, extent of their mobility. So we know so much about these personas. And the outcome is a globally relevant segmentation that covers 100% of a typical enterprise. So how I would tell a customer that they could go through this is we would walk through what are the most common types of personas and what are some of the implications of having those personas in your environments, how they work, the devices that they use, the frequency that they use their devices, their comfort with technology. And we use that to really help them understand how they need to provision for the different work styles. So when I talk to a customer about the work styles in their own environment, we do help them with some survey tools. We have some survey tools that our customers can use to get a sense of the personas that would be in their own environment. And I think really it's about customers being open to the idea that it's not just people who work in the office and people who don't. It's not just executives versus, millennials or Generation Z. It's really about behavioral work styles, and it's even surpasses and goes beyond what we would think about for job role. So this isn't, these personas aren't based on anybody's title. They're based on behavior. And so I always tell customers, don't assume because two people have the same title that they work in the same way. And so really looking at it from a behavioral standpoint is going to help customers have a much more empathetic approach to provisioning technology.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. So where do you think customers can really start with this? Where do they start that? Where do they really start with that investigation and looking at their personas and defining their personas across the workforce?
Well, I think, it's a very in-depth effort that we have done to do this. It's not something that can be undertaken very lightly. So I would say the best opportunity for customers to do this is probably to work with Poly to be able to help make some recommendations and make use of some of the tools that we have to leverage. And then I think also to understand how some of the recent shifts have really changed things. So, when we look at the findings from this round of research, there's a couple of headlines. So, a couple of the headlines that I would share for what we found, workplaces have become more communicative, and digital communication is replacing in-person meetings in a lot of spaces. And this was happening pre-COVID. So, and it has only been accelerated. The devices that support communication, including webcams, headsets, all of those things, the usage of those devices is on the rise. And again, COVID accelerated that a great deal, and we expect that some of those things will continue. I would say that COVID has also spurred the growth of a lot of video and voice conferencing. Video has grown in a big way. It was already growing pre-COVID. And once COVID hit, that's how people were communicating. And so, that's how, people are communicating now. It's how we're communicating. It's how this event is delivering information to people. So, we're starting to see that as a trend that's going to continue. I think the other thing is, and Claire, this will, we'll both relate to this, is home has become the new office for a lot of people. And I don't think that that's just going to be in the short term. I think that even though a lot of our predictions are that, and the predictions of the people who took this survey were that they'd like to get back into the office, almost at the same levels that they were before, there's also a sense that they don't want to work in the office every day. And so we may see a lot more flexible work coming as a result of the pandemic. And so I think customers really need to start planning around some of that stuff. And then I think that also leads to kind of the other finding, which is that work locations are going to be more flexible in the future. So I don't think the office is going away. I think actually technology that's provisioned in the office is going to be more important than it's ever been, because now you have to remotely collaborate with a lot more people than you did before. And so making sure that your spaces are ready for collaboration, either the personal desk spaces that people are using or the conference rooms that people are using, making sure that you have the technology for people to see each other, connect with each other, hear each other. That type of technology in the office is going to be more critical than it's ever been before.
Yeah. So when you look at these devices and and obviously the personal workspaces, when customers want to really look at trialing devices or look at rolling them out to suit the personas in this dispersed environment, how do you think they should go about it? And also, I suppose then the other part of that is, when you are looking to utilize new and different technology from a training perspective, how can we assist, or how should the customers go around making sure that they are trained effectively to utilize the tools?
Yeah, it's a really important part of what we should be talking to customers, and customers should be thinking about for their employees. As a result of a lot of these communication shifts, it means potentially a different set of devices and technology that people are going to be using. And when you roll out new technology, or also we know that more platforms that companies are using. Companies are having sometimes Microsoft and Zoom, or sometimes Microsoft and Cisco, or and at the end of the day, that creates it can create frustration for the users because they don't know how to use different things. And sometimes the device that they're using is their entry point into the platform. And so I think one of the important things to remember is the work styles. People have different levels of comfort with technology. So when I hear of companies doing a pilot, they want to, they're piloting a new technology. They want to, get people to use some technology. I always encourage them to find the people that are going to be more likely to use the technology and adopt the technology, because they'll put it through its paces. So whenever a customer is talking about doing a pilot, I always say, you should try to find your connected executives, because in our research, the connected executives are the highest likelihood of adopting new technologies. They use the most devices in their communication, and they work in the most different locations and environments. So they're more likely to be able to show you what works and doesn't work with your solution. Now, if you are trying to have a solution that's widely adopted, you may need to think about having people in your pilot that are less likely to adopt. And we do know that there are some personas that are less tech savvy and not as likely to use new technologies. And so you would have to, if you put those people in a pilot, you would have to spend a lot more time understanding the pitfalls or challenges that they have with some of these new technologies. And so using this research to really identify how you want to roll out technology and what your adoption challenges might be, it's another great way to leverage this. And I think that it's not just generational either. I mean, I think that we do see some adoption challenges with more traditional work styles, but we're also seeing that there's a lot of flexibility in the way that people are working, just driven by the growth of technology that companies that have been innovating in the space have been rolling out. We're all getting more used to using newer and different technologies, and I think video technology is a great example of that. We've seen in a lot of ways that video has been one of the primary ways that people have newly started to communicate, and adoption of video doubled in many cases during the pandemic across a lot of work styles.
Yeah, it's so visible though, isn't it? It's so like say we're communicating video calls every single day, and it's been so widely adopted. It is becoming really the norm, and people are starting to get really used to it. While it used to be a major issue getting yourself onto video and having that conversation. So when it comes to the persona piece and the making sure you've got the correct tools to roll out in that environment, to make sure everyone's connected in the right way, ultimately, how does this then affect the investment in the technology?
That's really the biggest unknown, I think, for a lot of customers right now, especially in light of what's happening with the pandemic, is that there's a lot of companies that had set budgets for things, assuming that, that there wasn't going to be this massive shift. And so I think it's a really good time for customers to think about how do I need to provision my budget differently in the next normal that is going to be, kind of returning to work, getting people, keeping people productive, allowing people to work more flexibly. I think it's really going to take some focus on what does a work from home policy look like? What is a technology, deployment look like for people who work from home? I think there's also a lot of sensitivity to how do we secure our investment and make sure that the assets that we're putting in people's homes don't go missing, or that we can't realize where those go. And so I think There's a lot of management tools that Poly has for our own devices that allow companies to keep track of devices that are being deployed outside of the, conventional office. And so I think being open to that and knowing that there is some protection level of being able to still have visibility into some of those assets should bring some peace of mind for companies who may be less comfortable sending devices home with people. But the truth be told, if you're expecting people to work from home as a company, you kind of need to help them be successful in that. And so that is an expectation that employees are going to have for their employers. And it could come down to even an employee retention issue if you're not paying attention to, how people need to be productive working in non-traditional office environments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think there is that expectation now that if you are working from home, you need a device that is effective in that environment, and not maybe old technology that maybe can't translate from the office into the home environment. So my final question: how can Poly help customers with this?
Yes, so we have a lot of information that we can share. We can sit down and help customers plan for the return to office. We can help plan for provisioning across different work styles, deploying new technologies. We also can help with understanding the impact of what's happening in their environments today and making some recommendations around implications for that. I think one of the really big messages that I would have and that I've learned over the 7 years that we've been doing this research is one size does not fit all employees. And I understand the business and the companies need to keep things simple and to be able to standardize on devices and be able to do that. But at the same time, I think being open to a few options that can cover a broader set of these work styles is really going to help people be more successful. It's going to help people feel like their companies get them. And so what I would really encourage companies to do is find out as much as you can about your users and work with your Poly sales reps or your Poly channel partners to be able to understand how you can put in action some of the recommendations based on the research that we've done. So this is quantitative global research that actually isn't just, believe me, it's from the words of the users themselves. And so I think, hopefully this year, 2021, can be the year that, companies really start to listen to their employees and understand how these shifts are actually have the ability to make people more productive in the long run. And so I would say, we want to be a partner in that as a company. And I think we're uniquely positioned to do that. And so I would really encourage customers to learn as much as they can about work styles and work with Poly to do that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thanks for your time today, Jen. Yeah. So if you want to ask any further questions or continue the discussion on Personas for Success, then please visit us at the Poly stand and enjoy the rest of the time at UC Summit. Thank you.
Thank you.